Okay, thank you. If I may, so the second psychological disorder I wanted to ask you about is psychopathy. So you've mentioned that psychopaths tend to switch from dominance hierarchy to dominance hierarchy because people get tired of their shenanigans and they have to move on to fresh people. And psychopaths also tend to be very low in conscientiousness. And you said that when you see some of these protesters at your speeches, some of the men in particular, your clinical intuition tells you that there's something seriously pathological about them. And I was wondering if you would suspect that some of these men might be psychopathic as...
Well, some of them likely are, but I don't know if a higher proportion of the ones who show up at protests and sort of creep me out are... I don't know if there's a higher proportion of people like that at the protests or not. I mean, I suspect in general that regardless of the protest, the proportion of people who have personality disorders among protesters is higher than the proportion of people who have personality disorders in the general population. Because you just expect that. You just expect that kind of acting out behavior. Believe me, I'm not saying that all protest is associated with personality disorder. I'm not saying that at all. There's plenty of reason for protest, but some of the reason for protests are credible reasons and some of them aren't credible reasons.
And I was just thinking that like the social justice hierarchy, so to speak, would be one of the last that these confused men...
That's a different issue. You know, there are analysis of the dangers of agreeableness. So agreeableness is a personality trait that underlies the radical egalitarian ethos, because agreeable people want everything to be shared equally. And I think it's a good ethos for a small group, for a family, because a family is kind of a communist system in some sense, right? It's like you want the food to be divided up equally among the children, clearly, and you want all the children, sort of regardless of their inherent abilities, to have the same opportunities and perhaps even the same outcomes. So I think agreeableness, which is associated at least in part with the maternal instinct, let's say, maternal patterns of behavior, I think it's a good first pass motivational approximation to a localized familial ethic. I think it's a catastrophe at larger scales. I don't think it scales at all. I actually think that's why we evolved conscientiousness. Because conscientiousness is the principle that allows larger scale organizations to exist. Agreeableness won't do it. Now, conscientiousness is a mystery, right? We don't have a neurological model. We don't have a conceptual model. We don't have an animal model. We don't have a pharmacological model. And we really only have one way of assessing it, which is self and other reports of personality proclivity. So, anyways, the problem with agreeableness, this has been modeled by game theorists, is that a population of cooperative people can be dominated by a single shark. So agreeableness is insufficient as a principle because it opens itself up to, what do you call that? Manipulation and...
Infiltration? I thought that was Arnold's suggestion.
Manipulation, let's leave it at that, to manipulation and exploitation. That's the other thing, exploitation. So...
Thank you.